Hello and welcome to In the Spotlight with Quocirca, the definitive podcast on digital disruption in the print industry. I'm Louella Fernandez, Director of Quocirca, and today I'm joined by Jason Cort from Sharp Europe and Gavin Rawson from Bitdefender. Today we'll be hearing more about the partnership between Sharp and Bitdefender and also hearing about how Sharp is helping SMBs protect their print devices from cybersecurity threats. So welcome to the show, Jason and Gavin.
Hi, Louella. Good to see you again.
Likewise, nice to see you.
So before we get into the conversation, let's start with some introductions. So Jason, if you could go first and tell us a bit about yourself, your career history and your role at Sharp Europe today.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll try and be brief because the career history spans over 30 years now in the technology industry. First 20 years of that very much in the print and document business. And then beyond that, moving into Sharp, that gave me the opportunity to continue my journey with print, but also to expand into professional AV, where Sharp has very strong offering and history, and then also more recently into IT services. And I'd also just take this opportunity to say that today is my 10-year anniversary at Sharp Electronics Europe.
Congratulations, very good.
My title at Bitdefender, I'm the Global Director of Sales Engineering for Bitdefender's technology licensing division. So it's our role basically to take various components of Bitdefender's technology and work with partners to, for various different security use cases to kind of solve whatever needs they have for their particular business vertical. I am a 20-year, I wouldn't say technology veteran, but then I don't know, maybe I'm getting towards that now. But yeah, I've worked in technology for 20 years. I was formerly a programmer. I've worked in product development. I was a DNS guy, for quite a couple of years, and then via that, in around about 2015. Caught the cybersecurity bug and kind of pivoted my career into that. So I've kind of worked sort of back-end internet infrastructure in the world of DNS through this sort of lens of security. I've worked with other technology companies in Europe for sort of ISP, internet service provider specific use cases. And then I'm coming up to my 2-year anniversary at Bitdefender this year, which has been wonderful.
Yeah, that's a really fascinating career history. And, before we sort of get into the detail of the Sharp and Bitdefender partnership, I thought it'd be useful to share with the audience a bit more about the cybersecurity landscape and specifically what kind of threats you feel that SMBs in particular are facing and the evolving threat landscape, because it's obviously getting more complicated and also more sophisticated. So, Gavin, maybe if you could share a bit of background on that, please.
Yeah, sure. So I guess in my day job, so I work with Bitdefender's threat intelligence products as well as our SDKs and ISP specific products. And I think it's fascinating and slightly terrifying if you look at the actual raw sensor data that we're seeing from our endpoints globally. Because we have many hundreds of millions of endpoints distributed globally. And if you look at the sheer number of indicators of compromise and threats that we're seeing, it's almost like, I don't know if I can use some colorful language. It's kind of like a boiling away, bubbling away in the background, and it's kind of always there. It's always on, and you don't really see it. It's kind of pervasive. And if you're looking at kind of like industry trends, maybe threats faced by SMBs. The big buzzword at the moment is AI. People are familiar with probably heard the term, things like Chat GPT bandied about, generative AI, and that's very much seen as the next big thing in the technology industry. Cybersecurity is interesting because I always think security is very much like it's like a dark mirror of kind of like the legitimate uses of technology. So for every legitimate use, you're going to see an illegitimate use. And, there's kind of scare stories in the press around, weaponization of AI, to do hacking, and you're not going to require any level of sophistication to do this. I don't really think we're kind of there yet. I think what we are seeing more of, and this is something that maybe businesses do need to be aware of, is use of AI tools for productivity, by attackers for things like, crafting really well written phishing emails. Imagine, if you will, that English is not your first language, for example, and you're maybe not working in a professional environment. Well, you now have access to capabilities that would allow you to craft a message with very good tonal qualities in a particular language very, very easily. And this is just anecdotal, but I think even personally, some of the phishing messages I've received recently are kind of like a step change from what I've seen before. They're very, very good, whereas before they were laughably poor. But these ones are really excellent. So I think that is something that folks should be aware of. That's I think how you will see weaponization of AI proliferating at this moment in time.
Yeah, and I think you make a good point there, because I think with IoT and print devices essentially being IoT devices, that the security challenges around print aren't just the MFP device and the information on that device, but it's also the fact those devices can be used as a access point to the broader network, and that's where the real damage can be done. And there's a potential of security breaches and reputational damage and so on. So maybe you can tell us a bit about the Sharp and Bitdefender partnership and how Bitdefender technology is being used on Sharp MFPs and how it's helping protect those devices from compromise.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I think we just kind of heard how all pervasive security threats are, and it's not new news, but the bar continues to actually rise. And in recent years as well, the regulators have become, far more heavily involved in the consequences of a breach in a business. And those consequences are now regulatory, financially based, and also reputationally based, because if you have a breach, you have to declare that you've had a breach. So now suddenly the whole world knows that you've had a breach, and that's clearly not good for your reputation. And then there's the fines that come with that. So that's kind of marked a big shift. You may take a decision not to protect your business, whereas a few years ago you might get away with it, you'd have some damage, but you could contain it. Whereas now it's a very different story in actual fact. So I think businesses have to take this far more seriously. But not only that, again, as we've just heard, the sophistication just continues to move at an incredible pace of change. So, for an organization like Sharp, where we have our areas of expertise, whether it's in print or display, aspects of IT services, there are aspects of IT where actually you do need that deeper level of expertise, and expertise that can keep pace with that rapid change. And security is one of those areas for us that was kind of screaming for that need, quite frankly. So, who do we partner with? Bitdefender has, it's got a great reputation in the marketplace. I can remember, as a consumer and in business many years ago, using Bitdefender technology. So they've been here for a long time, a lot of experience, and also a lot of experience working with vendors like Sharp and taking their technology and allowing us to embed that and take best advantage of it. And again, that's really important, because that's a very different approach.
Yeah, and Gavin, if you could tell us a bit more about how the anti-malware detection technology works and how it's applied to Sharp devices.
Yeah, sure. So, what we're effectively providing is what we would call in Bitdefender our anti-malware SDK, and maybe some of your listeners are thinking to themselves, well, why would you need to put that into a printer? What's the worst that can happen, right? Actually quite a lot is the answer. From a cybersecurity standpoint, printers are a very attractive target for attackers. They are a device that is always connected to the network. And sometimes they're kind of forgotten about and kind of maybe locked away in a cupboard somewhere. they're kind of out of sight. And, unlike, most traditional devices on your network, printers are really an IoT device. What's the significance of that? Well, they can't take an endpoint solution, or what we would call in the cybersecurity world, an endpoint solution, which is, Bitdefender, antivirus, installed on, say, your Windows laptop, for example, or your mobile. So, it's important to have some kind of security capability built into these devices, and that's where the malware SDK comes in. So, what we are looking for, within the integration, so when a file or a job is submitted to the printer, either physically by plugging it in, or via whatever network connected mechanisms are in place. We can take that particular file and we can take a very good look at it to kind of decide whether or not that file is malicious in any in any way. So we're doing various different processing around that. So we're looking at kind of various different heuristics. We're looking at behavioral analysis. Does this kind of smell like malware? We're looking at maybe the signature, looking at the hash of that particular file, comparing it to known samples that Bitdefender's seen in the past. And we're also looking at, kind of like a more generic fuzzing of that signature, which is kind of like, is this signature of this file similar to stuff that we've seen before? And that allows us to make, a determination basically as to whether or not this file is malicious, and it prevents compromise of the device. And that's obviously very important for all the reasons that I've just kind of stated and underlined, really.
And if the device is compromised, what happens? Does the device automatically shut down, or does it remediate, or is that something you track?
Yeah, it gets quarantined, basically. The file is quarantined, basically. So as an attack vector, it's effectively neutralized at that point. Okay,
so in terms of the broader security landscape, Jason, I know that you conducted a study recently around SMBs and their sort of pain points around cybersecurity. And I'm just interested to hear a bit more about what you're seeing from your customers in terms of what challenges they're facing around security, and if they're even aware, because often with our research, we see that there's a lack of awareness around print security risks amongst SMBs.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think it's really important to understand what the customer's thinking, and what are their perceived pain points. But also, I think to your point, what are they not thinking? What are they not aware of as well? Because that's just as important. So last year we did a survey of 5,500 small to medium businesses across 11 European countries. And the results were pretty consistent actually across most of those countries. And 2 out of 3 of those businesses and the IT professionals that we were talking to kind of felt actually anxious about security, but also really ill-equipped to handle a breach, or actually have the necessary level of security in place to protect their businesses. And we had a whole raft of statistics, but another one was that in the last 12 months, 1 in 5 businesses have had a print-related security incident. So again, it just reinforces that point that actually maybe print is a more vulnerable area because it's an area that is often overlooked by businesses. But the cyber criminals and the tools that they have at their disposal rarely overlook things because they're just computer programs running in the background, testing every possible point of weakness in a business, and they can do it quickly over thousands of businesses and continuously. So that means you have to be really constantly vigilant for that. And I think there's also a degree of, I'm small business, why would they want to attack me? Yeah. But again, they don't discriminate, these criminals. They're just looking for a vulnerability where they can strike quickly. They probably don't even know whether you're a small business or a big business. They want to get in quickly, see if they can maybe lock down your systems, put in a ransomware threat to yourselves, get some money and leave quickly. So that's why you have to really protect every point of your business. But I think one of the other things is, as part of that feedback, it can be very overwhelming. And I think that's where it's important that, the partners and the suppliers that customers decide to work with actually can help them in those various matters as well. And that's part of our responsibility. And that's why we have these surveys, so that we can actually help our customers in the best way.
And if I could just add to that, maybe, one of the things I like about the partnership between Sharp and Bitdefender is it's allowing customers of Sharp to put equipment on their network that is secure by design. So which is really key. You every device that you have on your network, generally speaking, these days can talk to any other device on the network. So it's very important that you have eyes on and an inventory of what's there actually physically on your network, and who's talking to who, and that each one of those is covered off from a security standpoint. And a lot of IoT devices, they don't think about security. And traditionally, maybe in the printing world, I've certainly seen in consumer print, there hasn't been a focus on security there. And I've seen these devices used at scale in homes. So frankly, it's not great having this sort of stuff in your home, and it's maybe insecure. I think given some of the points that we've discussed earlier, from an enterprise standpoint, it's probably a lot worse, because there can be huge financial ramifications from having this. So having devices that are secure by design on your network is great, and that's one of the reasons I think this is such a good partnership.
Yeah, and I think I'm just picking up on that point around the IoT connected devices and printers in the home as well as in the office. And the UK PSIT Act is coming into, I think it's in force on the 29th of April. So this podcast should be posted before then. But it's interesting because it's looking at the way of, helping consumers make more informed decisions around products that they're purchasing, and on the business side as well. It means that this type of partnership between Sharp and Bitdefender, by having that, then customers can already see the benefits and the potential security risks that they can mitigate with these kind of embedded technology, like you say, secure by design. And I think that's generally the way IoT devices have to go. And I wanted to pick up also, Jason, because you mentioned about the fact that cyber attackers don't discriminate between larger businesses or smaller businesses, and it's quite difficult to really kind of draw a comparison between the two in terms of cyber risks, now that it's not really just the exclusive domain of larger enterprises. Is Sharp offering anything in particular for its channel partners to help its customers better protect their environment? So obviously we've got the Bitdefender built-in technology, but in terms of services and solutions that wrap around that, it'd be great if you could share anything on that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'd actually start with the education side of things. So yes, we have to educate our endpoint customers, but we also have to help to educate, the channel. And it's not meant disrespectfully. In fact, we have to continually educate our people as well, because it is such a fast moving environment that we're in. So we've invested in providing a lot of foundational learning for our channel, and then things like the Bitdefender technology. Absolutely, our channel can use that technology. But what we've also done is recognise that that's not the be all and end all, and the more layers of security that you can build into your business, clearly the safer it is. So we've created a multi-layered security set of offerings, which is a combination of people, process, and technology. And as you layer that on, then you've got more certainty and more protection for your business. And these capabilities, as we've developed them, we've developed them in mind with the channel as well, because they need to be able to offer these services as well to the customers.
Yeah, and I guess it's very much about having that kind of scalable offering depending on the business requirements in terms of their security needs. So
yeah, and we would call it complete print security, is the sort of total full multi-layered service offering that we have there.
And are you already seeing that the channel are receptive to implementing these kind of solutions? And what kind of customers would you say that are already working with you in terms of the security aspect?
Yeah, it's a good question. And I think, maybe not surprisingly, the segment of the channel which is more IT orientated is the segment that really is very interested. We're getting more traction in that side of the channel, because when we look at our complete print security offering, the approach that we've taken, which has been an IT-centric approach, that is quite unique in the marketplace. So actually that creates an attraction for those IT vendors that want to secure that print estate to the same or similar levels to what the rest of those IoT, endpoint devices are secured to. I think one of the challenges with the traditional part of the channel, and especially for those that haven't invested in extending into that IT space, is skill set, is confidence and such like. But again, we're always happy to work with them and do work on their behalf. But it is a longer term, I think, burn on that.
But if I can maybe just add to that as well, I mean, I think, cybersecurity is generally a sliding scale. And like you say, there's lots of different types of organizations. There's the very small, the very big, and then there's maybe a level of kind of sophistication that you might need in terms of the overall solutions. And of course, this partnership plays a part in terms of IoT, but there are things customers can do, even at the sort of lower end of the scale, to provide themselves with a kind of belt and braces security model. So you mentioned people, processes, et cetera. Your people are your first line of defense, if you think about it, when it comes to cyber attacks. I talked earlier about AI, but humans are still quite good at spotting things that don't necessarily look quite right, and phishing emails, which is often the first way in which organizations are compromised. Humans are also very good at clicking on the links without thinking as well. So it is very much about training up your people, getting them to spot this stuff. But there's also other things that you can do as well. Again, belt and braces, make sure your systems are up to date, make sure you're using strong passwords, make sure you're using multi-factor authentication, making sure you're backing up your systems as well, making sure you have the principle of least access. So, give your people the bare minimum they need to do their job and no more. Don't give sort of all, pervasive access to everything. And change your passwords regularly. Did I already mention that? Yeah. Maybe I did. Yeah, well, there you go. I mentioned it again because it's really important. Change your passwords regularly, and even with just these sort of basic cyber hygiene, you can cover quite a lot. And that holds true for small organizations all the way up to very, very large enterprises. So the rules are the same; they don't change. Those are the fundamentals.
Yeah, and I think that, like you say, that cyber hygiene best practice applies to, I guess, both the IT environment as well as the print environment. Have you got anything else to add there, Jason, in terms of what steps businesses can take to better protect the actual print environment, particularly for SMBs who maybe still aren't aware of the risks?
I think Gavin's covered, the basics. Really, it really is good hygiene. Change your passwords regularly. Make sure that your devices are behind a firewall, for instance. Again, that's pretty basic. It comes as standard with a lot of the systems today. And just get into good habits and good practices. And that human element, again, really important on that. There is training available for those types of things as well. So again, I would encourage businesses to look at that human side of the training, but also kind of remember you can't just do it once. Again, it's constantly changing. So you have to constantly refresh your practices and the training for your people as well.
And as well, look at the right partnerships as well. I think there are a lot of security vendors out there today. Look at the problems that your business has, and there'll be a vendor there for you to help solve that. You can do a lot of it yourself, but it's easier to let others do the heavy lifting.
Yeah, and I think particularly for SMBs who don't have the resources in-house and budget limitations, it makes sense to go to a third party, either channel partner or technology vendor to get advice and guidance. Because as you've explained so well, that the landscape is changing so rapidly, and to keep on top of these cybersecurity threats is challenging even for large enterprises. So it makes sense for small businesses to look to companies that have got those partnerships in place already. So just to summarize really, so the Bitdefender technology is available on all smart MFPs, is that correct, Jason?
The majority of our smart MFPs are what you would call a smart MFP, yeah.
So, it's been really good actually to understand a bit more about the partnership and how Sharp is really using that secure by design as a foundation for its MFPs and through the technology partnership with Bitdefender. So, we'll provide some more information in the show notes on the partnership and also the MFPs that have got this technology supported, and also the CPS offering you mentioned, Jason. Just to round off the conversation, it'd be really useful to hear more about from Sharp's perspective, what's next for Sharp in terms of its product strategy and cybersecurity strategy for 2024, and also any particular trends you think are going to impact the cyber landscape in the coming year.
Yeah, so from a cybersecurity point of view, clearly develop the relationship with Bitdefender and evangelize, really get the message out there, which is what we're trying to do today as well with Quocirca. That's just so important. Yes, we'll look at enhancing the technology, but I think we also need to focus on making it simple for customers to actually use and implement, and that's where AI, I think, will have a big role to play in enabling that, making it easy for our customers.
I guess from like a Bitdefender standpoint, cybersecurity is a bit like a dark mirror. It's like a darker mirror version of the kind of legitimate world. Well, Bitdefender, we've been using techniques like, machine learning, which you could argue is AI related for a long time. I mentioned earlier, we're seeing attackers, leverage these new capabilities that are coming out around, generative AI, large language models, etc. We're also looking at how we can leverage those as well to better protect consumers, and we've got some very exciting initiatives coming in the in the next few quarters. I think I've seen the future, and it's very, very exciting, and I think it will really empower and help consumers protect themselves. And for me, that's very exciting. Cybersecurity isn't going to go away anytime soon. It will continue to evolve, and it's kind of an ongoing process. But for me, it's very exciting to see how you can turn these capabilities for good, basically. So yeah, that's what I expect to see in the next year or so.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I agree. I think it's a very exciting time for the cybersecurity industry, and I think even for the print industry, because the fact the devices are connected and they're smart devices, it's so important for vendors to make sure that the devices are protected from compromise. So, I really appreciate you taking the time to join me today. And as I say, we'll put some more information in the show notes about the partnership, and I look forward to speaking to you again in the near future.
Great. Thanks, Louella.
Pleasure as always.
So thank you for joining today's episode of In the Spotlight with Quocirca. For more information, please go to quocirca.com and be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Thanks again for joining, and I look forward to seeing you on our next episode.